Hello, hello.
Hello, 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 y'all. Hello, 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 y'all. Welcome. I mistimed my timer there, which is interesting, but we're starting now. Hello. 404 MLH members when their dimmer screen is late by a very small amount of milliseconds. Angry Ryan emoji. Sorry for being late, y'all. This stream relies on a self-hosted server to be able to do the self-hosting stuff. And that server, I've talked about the computing devices that I have access to, and you might remember if you've been here for a while, a specific laptop that has some very inconsistent behavior due to some RAM that shorts out and is held together by electrical tape. That might be the server that's running over in the corner. So yeah, it's working now, but it has taken a sec. Also, apparently, the firmware is incompatible with the Linux kernel, which I didn't know was a thing. And I updated the firmware, and it's still incompatible. And it's been like this the whole time I've been using it, but that means that every time that I reboot, it doesn't reboot, it starts to shut down, reaches that firmware issue, then crashes. We're here now. Sorry for the delay, y'all. But I'm excited to be here with you. Oh my goodness, so many people are dropping off the face of the earth. Apologies, y'all. We're going to be self-hosting encrypted web applications. I'm really excited for this. I hope you're really excited for this. We have our Ubuntu server running in the corner for us to self-host on. For those of you who have not...
Super excited.
I'm glad. Ooh, Cyberpunk. I have made a Diffie-Hellman double racket encryption code. I need some help with it. Is it possible? I am not enough into cryptography to know what that is, other than to know, like, that Diffie-Hellman is a form of key exchange. Apologies, Cyberpunk baddie. I am not the person to help with that. Hey, Ron. Hey, Otaku. For her very good point, I'd recommend sending it on the Discord to see if others can help. Cyberpunk baddie, if you are not on the Discord, because I see first-time chatter, welcome. Discord.mlh.io. The Discord community is wonderful and super supportive. Thank you, 404. Hey, Shem, welcome. Hello, 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 y'all. Hey, Tushar. So, okay. We are not going to be writing our own web application. This is focused on the hosting. So, 404, let's see how quickly I get tired of this. I don't know what you're possibly talking about. I don't know what you could get tired of. I realize that if I don't acknowledge it, maybe it'll stop sooner. Okay, great. That's enough staring deep into the camera lens. Valid. Okay, so we are not going to be writing our own application. Hey, Batu. Hey, YRG. 404 doesn't have points for metal pipes, tires easily now. Oh my goodness. Both, given the information that I have access to, which is 404 talking last stream about not having money for metal pipes. That checks out. I realized that as I was saying that it implies that I have like some master like spreadsheet of all of the points that who has what. Hey, Ritwick. Welcome. For I can lend you metal pipes. Okay. So why the session got late? Sorry for that, y'all. This session relies on an Ubuntu server for us to self-host this on. I was troubleshooting that and lost track of time to even send y'all the notification. Deep apologies. Thank you for being here now. I put in an order for 3 metric ton more. They will arrive soon. Okay. So this is where we now talk about what we're going to be hosting. Which is CryptPad. So CryptPad is basically a fully end-to-end and locally encrypted Google Docs alternative.
Hello.
That you can self-host for free. It's incredibly cool with, again, really cool real-time editing and collaboration, which is wonderful. If I scroll down, oh, is it just that? I wanted more information to show y'all. Hey, Zamunda. In our about, here we go. So it is your full Office suite, end-to-end encrypted with private collaboration, fully open source.
Raw.
And it has been supported by either like very open public money or by users. And it is incredibly cool. Okay, hi bot, you are going away. Okay, great. So this is what we're going to be hosting, which is incredibly cool. I think this is a very wonderful project. Is this your last stream this Global Hack Week? It is not. I'm streaming today and Wednesday, so we should have 4 hours to get this working. Fingers crossed. Even the bot knows it's named Not Epic. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Self-aware bots. What's the API coded in? That is a very good question. God, I just want your GitHub repo. JavaScript. I assumed as much, but I didn't want to say that just knowing nothing. So yeah, this is what we're going to be hosting. This is where I will say, self-hosting is cool, but self-hosting makes a trade-off between privacy and security. If you self-host something, it is inherently more private because no one else can access that server theoretically, but it is inherently less secure because you, in your spare time, maintaining a Docker container or whatever, is inherently less time and money and energy spent on security than something like Google hosting Gmail, where they have a dedicated team of security people. So if you are interested in privacy, it is cool to spin this sort of thing up. If you want to make sure that no one can ever read your documents, this is not necessarily the solution. I think the difference is that it can help protect against like your run-of-the-mill, like companies constantly selling your data and then the government just buying that data. But it can't protect against someone, an advanced persistent threat, I believe is the term for it, that has a lot of money and resources that wants to get at your data specifically. I just want to give that disclaimer. Less reliability too, yes. I don't see that as much of a downside, but it is very much a downside. I've had my what if Google rebels? I've had my server up for 2 weeks now, and the only place in the chain that I have had downtime is in my DNS provider, which we'll talk about that. So with that, that's what we're going to be hosting. And the point of this stream is self-hosting. Oh, wow, it just got very dark. 1 second, I'm going to turn on the light. Okay, we're back. Oh. There we go. Now we're back.
Never gonna give you up.
You saw your chance. Okay. So that's what we're going to be hosting. And where we're going to be hosting it is really up to you. For me, I have an old laptop that I've installed Ubuntu Server on. I believe it is Ubuntu Server 24. Oh, actually, I can see that right here. It is, yes, 24.04. That's what I'm going to be hosting this on. You could do this equally well if you were to use a cloud provider of some kind. You could run this on your own computer in a Docker container or just running separately. There are plenty of different ways that you could run this, but I have my own server over there, and that's what I'm going to be doing. You can use whatever you have access to. I once shifted a website from WordPress to Wix just because someone was trying to hack the website repeatedly. Closed source does help with security sometimes. So that did help you with security. Yes. Closed source is not the thing that helped you there. The thing that helped you there is, again, the difference between WordPress being a pretty much do-it-yourself solution, open source, and maybe you have a hosting provider at best, but you are the one who is in charge of your website. Wix, they are in charge of your website. They have the security staff and the security team to keep your website as secure as they can. And you just get to tinker around with what it looks like. That's the distinction there. Generally, closed source applications are less secure than open source applications. I'm speaking in terms of theory, not necessarily in terms of practice. I don't know much about the practice. But in theory, a closed source application can have a 0-day or some exploit that is never found and never patched because no one sees it. Where theoretically, open source code, the more eyes on it, with enough eyes, all bugs are shallow, I believe is the expression. Hey, Tilted Masha, welcome. Matcha. How much would it cost for your own Ubuntu server and how to do it? Ubuntu server is an operating system and it is free and open source. So really it is just any old computer that you have or have access to, you can run it on. That's, again, this is running on my old laptop over there. You can, of course, spend as much money as you want on a server. You could spend basically infinite money, but you can run Ubuntu server on almost anything. Tilted Matcha, I'm a complete noob, want to learn Python. Where do I start? Any advice is appreciated. I'm first going to turn to chat, who might have learned Python more recently than I have. If anyone has any advice right off the top of their head. And while I'm waiting on chat, I'm going to look up to see if the resources that I use to learn Python still exist. I forgot, 404, that you are a big Python head. CS50P, Free Code Camp, Code Academy, Kaggle. Interesting. Yeah, so I learned on Code Academy. Sorry, Tilted Matcha, if this is a little bit overwhelming for you to just have like 10 people being like, oh, here's how you can learn Python. What I will say is that I think any service, platform, course, or site that you enjoy using is the place that you can learn Python, especially as a beginner. Where I know when I was a beginner, what I was learning was the generic stuff that anyone can teach. Again, I learned it on Code Academy, which I think was really good. But you don't need to be worried about if you are taking the best course for your basics, because your basics are basic. They're important to learn, obviously, and I'm excited that you're learning them. Welcome. But also, it isn't the deeper you go into specifics, the more difficult and more specifically you need to like choose the right course. Thanks for the follow, Tilted Matcha. Okay, a bunch of questions I have missed. How much would it cost? Okay, I already answered that one. What did you host? I'll talk about that in a sec. So like, how did you do it? Any guidance for steps? Okay, I'm gonna grab a sticky note here and I'm gonna start writing stuff down to make sure I get back to these. Okay. Just reading and summarizing. Case, as an engineer lead production manager, I want to set up and use Encrypted to give secure permissioned access to others of my private documents and project management tools. Sweet, this is going to be a good stream. I am glad you think so. I think Encrypted is really cool. And it is a thing that I've already hosted. So I've theoretically done this before and know how to do it. That's why I feel comfortable doing this on stream. Does your ISP know, or does your ISP allow hosting through, or is this to understand how hosting a server works? My ISP has let me do this thus far. I don't believe there's anything that they have against this, but we will talk about port forwarding and how you can get your ISP port forwarding and dynamic DNS, which are the two things that you need to host something like this and let your ISP understand what you're doing. Can we set up an Ubuntu server on a VM? Yes, you can, 100%. For starts as Evil Villain Arc, always has been. He likes pineapple pizza. That's one of the things that I love about the MLH community is the fact that we spend a lot of time together. And for I hope you aren't too deeply hurt. But that, I find that pretty funny. If you do not, I will apologize for laughing. Okay. So let me, I forgot that we literally have, no, that's not ours. Seriously, Twitch just has a pineapple on pizza emoji? That's wild. Shrew, welcome. Okay, so let's talk first about installing Ubuntu server. So I Googled Ubuntu server and got to ubuntu.com/download/server. It's very easy to find. I'm not going to necessarily, actually, I'm going to drop this link in chat just for posterity's sake. Great. And really, this is just a well-known, well-tutorialed Linux server distro. You could really use any Linux server that you want. I personally use Ubuntu server just because there are so many tutorials for it, because it is kind of the entry-level Linux distro that people talk about. So all you really need to do is download this to start. I personally find that this download takes forever. So I always go to alternative downloads and then torrent the download. This is where I will clarify that torrenting is a technology to allow you to download from peers rather than from a direct server. What people download with torrents is sidestepping that, but torrenting can be a lot faster for a file like Linux distros. So you can click this and you get a torrent file, which you can open in many different softwares. I'm going to put bugs on line 51 of y'all's 30-lined code. That's so deeply cursed. That just reminds me of someone whose best threat was that they were going to smell you while you slept. Anyway, that's tangent. Deep tangent. This is how you can download Ubuntu server. If you don't want to deal with torrenting, you can just click this download button. And it'll just take maybe an hour or two. So this is how you get your operating system. And then installing it, if you have hardware, you will need to burn and mount the ISO to a USB. If you are setting it up on a virtual machine, you can just mount the ISO directly into the virtual machine, however you set up your virtual machines. But if you're doing it on hardware, I use Balena Etcher, which is an open source tool for flashing ISO images onto SD cards and USB drives. It's kind of the standard that people use. And then you can just plug that USB drive into your computer, reboot it to that USB drive, and then follow the instructions. It's a very easy install, all things considered. So that's the basics of how to get started installing Ubuntu server. We're going to talk about port forwarding and dynamic DNS, which is how we can host behind, like with our ISP. Great. I believe that is the questions when I come back to that. Use this to set up Tails. I recommend it. Yes. Oh, 404, that's evil. I will change all versions of your library so that each runs in a dependency conflict with the other. Lenovo laptops are so secured that it disables auto secure boot. Oh, that it auto disables secure boot. Interesting. And for VM. So for a VM, do I have... UTM is the VM software that I use on Mac OS. I've not used it on stream. For most VM providers, what you can actually do is you can like look and see. Actually, they do not provide a server instance. Okay, but you can find server VM for VirtualBox. I know that these sort of things exist where you can find the like VM, like the entire VM on the internet, download it and run it, but I do not know what trustworthy places are for that. Otherwise, what you will just do is when you are creating a VM, you will just choose this boot ISO image path. Again, you will probably not be using this like virtual machine software, but you just choose this path and set this to wherever you have your Linux ISO. In the process of Linuxing my PC, I corrupted like 2 USB drives. LOL, I still regret. Ugh. Crying for you. If you create a new allocation, forgive the lack of exact terms, the USB becomes usable again. Good to know. Generally, I think it's... Yeah, I used to know that. I used to be more into IT. Ubuntu is great, especially if you need a well-documented long-term support with safe permissioned OS UI. And if you're just building secure slim container to serve APIs or build UI asset you're going to make available to a CDN, maybe check out Alpine. Good to know. I tried and some senior I know said it became dead and can't be used again or something. It happens. Storage is yeah. What tool is this? It only looks... Oh, when you said which tool is this, it only looks dead, I was very confused. It only looks dead as the flash drive. Which tool is this? If you were talking about my virtualization tool, it is UTM, which is a virtual machine software that is specifically for M1 Macs. So if you do not have an M1 Mac, you don't need this. VirtualBox is the iconic, like, very free, I believe, open source. Yep, open source virtualization tool. But if you are on Windows, I want to do some quick Googling to double check. Great. VMware Fusion. I know at one point it was only free for Windows Pro, but VMware Fusion is a Windows specific. Wait, what? Operating system Mac OS. Interesting. Okay. I apparently don't know too much about... Huh. Anyway, VMware is another virtualization software. Was on a short call. Tumbleweed Sus, I'm assuming. Either that or Tumbleweed Sus. Among Us? Sus? Among Us? God. VMware Workstation is the one for Windows. Thank you. I use DOSBox to play DOS games on Mac.
Red sauce.
That is, when I had roommates, they were in their mid-30s. And that is, I think, the one thing that I did that was the most Zoomerish that drove them absolutely insane is Among Us? Among Us? Sus? Among Us? Okay. Anyway, Tumbleweed SUSE is the only Linux distro I was able to install on my M1 Mac. Linux SUSE. One of the things that I've talked about before, just Googling it. Asahi Linux. There we go. Pronouncing it right the first time. This is the Linux project to get the Linux kernel running on M1, or really any M series processor. And their like main operating system is Fedora Asahi Linux, which they have actually directly partnered with the Fedora project. So this is if you want to run Linux on an M1 machine. This is if you want to run Linux on an M1 machine on a hardware level, not in a virtual machine. This is what is recommended. With that, I'm trying to think of, because I have other things hosted on the server, and I'm trying to think of what the best way. Yeah, I think this will be fine. Docker and Podman are good because they allow you to quickly bring up almost any OS and then even save your OS customizations so that you can spin them up in the cloud. Slightly less complicated deployment process. Yes, Docker is wonderful for when you are creating as a developer your brain. Oh, when you are creating as a developer your own server. And it is great for you to use to deploy your systems to on your whatever server machine. So you could use your laptop as a server without virtualizing an Ubuntu server onto it. Those guys are insane. They reverse engineered and made OS for M1. I wonder how I can become like them. I also agree that they are insane. And some of them like live stream their development process. It's wild, the skill of some developers. And again, that they're doing it all free open source stuff. What do you do? Thinking. He's streaming. LOL. This is because I just recently... Things might be changing, is all I'm going to say. But currently, I work as a production technician at my local library doing AV stuff, and then I do live streaming work with MLH. I'm also a student, computer science. Okay, so I'm going to show y'all good luck, keep it up, thank you. This is my hosted instance of this. crypt.dimmerserver.duckdns.org. If you were to go to this, you will not be able to create an account because I've locked it down. But it gives us the opportunity to look to see, hey, oh, look, this is working. Shem, bad timing. I'm sorry. While this was loading, I was looking over at chat. The one thing about Crypt Drive is that it is designed for maximum security, not necessarily maximum convenience. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to log in quickly. Haha! Dimmer has a sixth sense for metal pipes. But 404 didn't know it was coming. I just realized that y'all also get jump scared by these things. I always thought that they just impacted me. Maybe that is a slight oversight. What am I looking for? I'm looking to sign in. So again, it is not the fastest application because it is focused on security at all cost of convenience. Oh, no, we don't. We see the chat all the time and it comes after about 5 seconds. Okay. So those notifications don't show up in my chat. So y'all get forewarning before it happens. That makes me feel a lot better. Dang, this is longer than I've ever seen before. This is where 404. Oh wait, Shem, no, we don't get forewarning. Oof. Also, 404. Let me test. LMAO, please don't go to this because I think that'll only make it worse. Oh, when you said, let me test, you were saying, let me test to see what metal pipes are like. Not let me test your server instance. Metal pipes hurt on a headset. RIP. Okay. Okay, well, this shows you the downsides of self-hosting. Because it theoretically should be working, but it's not. But alas, this is what we're going to be doing.
Woohoo.
Maybe dimmer funded. Yeah, so to be totally transparent, to be 50% transparent, I refunded all points that were spent yesterday, like in the last, like however long. I refunded all the points, which is a thing that I like to do on occasion. I don't do it all the time, but I like to do it fairly frequently because the point of points is to spend them and to get to have fun with them. Okay. I need to do one more thing, which is I need to uninstall. Okay, I can do this. Trying to remember where all of these little pieces are that we're going to set up shortly. But first I'm uninstalling them so we can walk through reinstalling them. Well, I'm glad I'm learning good stream host etiquette from Dimmer. Thanks. So this is good stream host etiquette when you're doing something like a stream for MLH, where it's like a small community of people. If you were a very large streamer, doing this wouldn't necessarily be what you want to do. I'm like logging into different users on the server and deleting files right now. Oh, Biotaku, thank you for joining us. This is the sort of stuff that I was trying to do before. I just got denied by my own server. There we go. Okay, now I'm logged in. Sorry. I just want to delete all of this before we get started. Exactly why I go broke every other stream and ask Dimmer to bail me out with taxpayer points. I'm not bailing you out. I'm just giving you your points back to you. We have a monopoly money economy, and I just slip you some monopoly money under the table. How do I do the thing? Okay. I'm going to share my screen so y'all can join me in my pain. So I'm currently just trying to delete the server stuff that I have. Okay, that was not as much as I thought it would be. Great. Okay, I believe that is all of the... I believe those are all of the files for CryptPad. So we can now work on installing it. The order of operations here is we're going to install it and get it running on our network locally. Then we are going to connect our server to the outside world. Ooh. I'm going to ask a poll of chat. Have you set up a virtual machine for this stream? Go ahead and type 1 in chat for yes, 2 in chat for no, and 3 if you're just here for vibes and not to follow along. But too, I've seen that and I do not feel comfortable commenting on it in stream. Can we use a WSL instance instead of a VM? That is not how WSL works, unfortunately, but do not set up a VM if you have not already. With disclaimer of using current VM. Okay. I'm realizing that a VM might be the wrong choice for this, and I want to see how long I should spend on trying to find a better solution. For my poor PC, can't run Blender and a VPN and a few hundred edge tabs, and a VPN and a few hundred edge tabs and a VM at the same time. Deranged. Should I use my spare Pentium Linux system? If you want to, you can. Pentium might be pretty old. We'll talk about the requirements. I have them open. Same thoughts over here, Dimmer. What's the application? So the reason why I'm questioning this is because a good VM won't allow it. VMs don't take up a lot of space. Theoretically, no. But the reason why I'm asking is because a good VM will require a lot of configuration to let it accept external network requests and receive them, or to receive them and send them. And that is what we want. And I believe that the better solution, if you do not have a dedicated server you want to run this on, is to use a Docker instance on your computer using Docker Desktop. Oh no! Oh. Yes, I stand by that. It just means that I need to delete more stuff. Eh. Okay. Great. Let me get back into the server. I just accidentally left. Okay. Do not set up a virtual machine if you are doing it specifically for this stream. If you are doing it to learn how to set up a virtual machine, go ahead. Can you show us how to run it in Docker? Yes, we will talk about that. I just want to check. I thought for a sec I didn't install this in Docker, but I'm confusing it with another tool. Because I've installed a lot of things on servers. Wait, did I not install it in Docker? If I had just like another hardware server to spin up for the stream, that would be what I would do. I don't believe that this is a Docker instance. Please share screen. So I have not shared screen because I have just been running around frantically in my terminals trying to figure out how I installed this before. Okay, great. So I did not use Docker, but you can use Docker. I'm going to end the poll and we'll talk about this. So the purpose of this is that it is an application that other people can access, including you. You can be those other people. Oh no, I've just done something wrong in my poll management tool, and this might be stuck here. Let's... Okay, great. You interact with the poll by saying either 1 or 2 in chat. I just lost the ability to close the previous poll, so I needed to create a new one to overwrite it. Okay. Sorry, this is a chaotic moment of me trying to figure out the best way to get y'all to be able to follow along if you want to. Can you show us how to run it in Docker? It has Docker instructions, so we'll talk about those. I use Fusion, and you can clearly feel the reduced speed. Yes, a virtual machine will always be reduced in speed, just because of all of the layers of like overhead between your hardware processor, your bare metal, and your OS. Hey, Ryan Patel. Welcome. Okay. Okay. So this tool has an installation guide, which is right here, which you can access from the repo that we talked about. I'm just going to drop the repo again, just to be double sure that y'all have it. And you want to follow for production, where you can get to the admin installation guide. Lol, 8 minutes to download 2.7 gig. Wow, that's not bad. Dang. Again, wait. Let's check this. If I download this, excuse me. What? The last time that I tried downloading it, it took 2 hours. Was it my VPN? It's why I needed to torrent it. Oh my goodness. Okay. That's wild. Anyway, I feel like my brain is filled with bees. Speaking of a brain being filled with bees, we're about halfway into the stream. Very appropriate 404. And one of the things that I always like to do about this time in stream is give everyone a 5-minute break, everyone including myself, to stand up, drink some water, stretch, take care of themselves. I have a song that I always like to put on for this, and I'm going to drop the link to that song in chat. And set a 5-minute timer. We will be back. I could get 1 gigabit per second if I paid for it. That is generally how getting goods and services in a capitalist economy works. Sorry, that was a very dumb joke. But too expensive, yes, I get that. I have the lowest internet plan that the provider that serves my address gives. But that's 300 megabits per second symmetric on fiber. So it's a pretty, yeah, I am in no place to talk about the current state of internet infrastructure. But still great speed. Oh, my speed is incredible. I could not ask for better. I have the ability to get more if I ever need it, but lowest, they say. I mean, yes, that is with this provider who offers fiber. My default provider is a fiber provider, so fairly high speeds by default. I had someone in the mail trying to sell me on getting 5G internet when I have a fiber run into my apartment. Anyway, okay, we're gonna be back in 5 minutes, starting now.
1, 2, 3, and 4. Count what you have now. Don't count what you don't have. Count what you have now. Don't count what you don't have. Find that you have so much. 頑張りすぎる自分に疲れてふと泣けてきた真夜中のバスルームで
What happened to the music? Excuse me. Hello, 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 y'all.
Can't you see? Can't you see? 幸せの基準わかるものさし自分の心の中にあるのさ You can find, you can find 足りないもの数えるくらいなら足りてるもの数えてごらんよ Count what you have now, don't count what you don't have. Can't you see? Can't you see? Don't count what you don't have. You can't have so much. You can't find. Can't you see? Can't you see?
Hello, 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 y'all. I have just sat on the wrong cable and unplugged a bunch of things. We will be back shortly. Okay. Hello, 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 y'all. I'm back. My headphones have a removable cable, and I sat on that cable while I was trying to sit down and get set up. Anyway, hi, welcome. I have some coffee in my HackCon mug that has Frankie the file system ferret. Hopefully y'all had a nice stretch there. I want that mug so bad. I'm sorry for your loss, 404. So you're clarifying that it's coffee, not pizza. Hi, Ethical Cod. It's been a while. Welcome. Nice to see you. At least currently it's coffee. I maintain my right to privacy and to fill my bathtub with slices of pizza and just absolutely get lost in the sauce. You're welcome, 404. Lost in the sauce is one of my favorite expressions generally, and this is the first time that it was actually appropriate. Lost in sauce, love it. Shem def TMI. That is one of the things that makes it very hard to find housing and like a good place to rent, because asking your landlord to completely replumb the drain of your bathtub to take pizza slices is very difficult. Okay. With that, we're going to get back to talking about installing Encrypted. And the problem is that I'm trying to walk a tightrope here of, I want y'all to be able to follow along. And also, my knowledge here is not infinite. And I don't know. There are many different tools. Let's talk about some other tools that you can self-host. Audiobook Shelf is they have a very interesting selection of audiobooks in the background of their slide here. Anyway, Audiobook Shelf is a self-hosted audiobook and podcast server. And if we go to the documentation, you can see that we have installation tips for installing it on Docker, on Linux, specific these distros, Linux these distros, Linux NixOS, Windows, and then how to set up a reverse proxy, all of these different things. This is the first thing that I set up on my server. I needed to change to red for that. But yeah, this is like an instance of where it provides many different installation instructions. Whereas Encrypted really says, this is what you should have. You should have a system that is running a Linux distro starting at Debian. Or Debian 12. And then if you want, there is a Docker install that you can do. But again, this is like a Linux Docker, like, or at least a Unix. These are a bunch of Unix commands that Chown, I don't believe, is Chown a Windows? Yeah. So these instructions really do not support running. This project specifically might not be a one that you can self-host if you do not have a hardware server that you can use. There are plenty of other ones. Audiobook Shelf. The other one that I use currently is... Actually, I use two other ones. For music, I use Navidrome, which allows you to set up your music library with files that you own and then send them using the Subsonic API to your devices. And then I also have an own cloud instance, which is basically a storage provider. I really want this to work. But either way, it's like a storage. This is like the Google Cloud, Google G Suite sort of stuff that is not encrypted to within an inch of its life. All of these are free and open source. OwnCloud free. Well, OwnCloud has a free open source version. It is OwnCloud is open source. Bum, bum, bum. If I go here. Great. I'm looking for where they say it, but basically it's maybe it's under pricing. Here we go, pricing. There we go, basic and free community. You can self-host it and use all of the stuff because it's open source. So that's OwnCloud, Navidrome, and Audiobook Shelf are the three that are fairly easy to host. They have instructions for a bunch of different things, and all 3 of them are running on Docker instances for me. I chose Encrypted because it is so cool and so secure. One of the things that it does is it has 2 different domains that you set up. One for dealing with your key management and your login, and one for dealing with the UI, so that if there is a cross-site scripting attack or some vulnerability in the UI, it cannot directly access any of your secured confidential information, which is really cool. It's a really cool, interesting way of setting up secure projects, an interesting secure project. But it has the most restrictive install requirements. I wonder if the streamer owns the video streaming rights on Twitch for a live stream so that they can record it, stream it to the Farcaster network. Anyone know? So I know that we are currently both streaming live to YouTube and Twitch. I don't know anything about Farcaster. Yeah, I'm assuming the answer to that is yes. Unless you are like a specific tier of partner with Twitch and monetization and blah, 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 blah. But for most streams. Okay, so I'm not going to do a whole lot to help you with your virtual machine or your Docker instances because I don't know, and this isn't designed to support that. There are other things that I recommend if you want to do some self-hosting stuff. OwnCloud for file storage, sharing, sync, all of that. Navidrome if you have a music library. Audiobookshelf if you have audiobooks or podcasts. Those are what I currently use, and I found them very wonderful, especially Audiobookshelf, not needing to have all of my audiobooks on my phone at one time. Great, lovely, 100%. But Encrypted is kind of an interesting one in what it requires because of all of its high security stuff. Again, Encrypted is engineered to maximize privacy and to minimize the amount of useful information that can be gained even if the host machine is compromised. However, it is up to the administrators to ensure that the host machine is secure. The instructions for this go beyond the scope of this guide, but best practices include. This is what I talked about before, of you can maximize privacy by self-hosting, but you are decreasing security. Okay. So I'm going to... Yeah, if you look here, install Docker engine on Debian, because this is still designed for you to be hosting this on a Debian server. I'm hosting it on an Ubuntu server. BuddyBase? I do not know what BuddyBase is. Are you looking for a no-code platform? Thanks for the follow, the Unbeaten 7. The dyslexia was really acting up there. I thought it was like the Unbeaten's Raven. Anyway, Ritwick, this is a Docker install for another tool. And if this is the tool that you want to install via Docker, great. But this is not what we were talking about today. I was planning to test this to learn Docker earlier. Yeah, so does it have Docker Compose is wonderful. I love Docker Compose. You know what? Yeah, let's do the Docker install for this. Why not? Let's live on the edge. Great. That is all rambling prerequisite for me to say that I do not know if you'll be able to get this running if you do not have a hardware server, but we can try. So, no, that's the wrong link. Here we go. We're going to install this with Docker. Am I really doing this? The last time I installed this, I didn't use Docker. And do I want to change it live on stream? And I think I'm going to, because I think it is useful to talk about Docker Compose and installing something with Docker. Okay, let's do it. So we have our server. I'm going to log out of, if you're doing it through the other install method, you are recommended to create a dedicated account just for that. No. Great. So if we do Docker PS here, you'll notice that currently I'm running OwnCloud, Audio Bookshelf, and Navidrome, like I talked about. And we are going to add CryptPad to this. And I'm going to do that by making a directory that is CryptPad, where we're going to hold our files, and I'm going to cd into CryptPad. Great, we now have an empty folder in our home directory that is for us to be able to set up the files that we need to install CryptPad. Are you doing it on a remote server? Yes, this is a remote server and that it is over in the corner, but I've SSH'd into it so that I can share my screen with y'all. You could do this literally anywhere. Both on a cloud server, on a local server. If you were a Linux user, you could install it on your local machine. Okay. So these Docker instructions are so much worse. I'm not using Docker. Just looking at this, just this like side note of like, oh yeah, you'll just need to mount this as a Docker volume. Like, I am not good enough with Docker to be able to tell you how to do that. So we're going to do the normal install method. Development team recommends creating a dedicated user to install and run CryptPad in production rather than the root user. I'm not logged in as the root user, but I'm not logged into the main, or I'm logged into like the user that I use most frequently. And I have a CryptPad user dedicated to this. CryptPad is not an SU doer, so we might need to switch back and forth occasionally if we need sudo. But generally, this should be where we're operating. Great, okay. Theoretically, that CryptPad folder is from old. How do you set up? I'm using USB live server. Okay. If you're running it on a USB live instance, it means that everything will be deleted once that computer reboots. I do not recommend it. I recommend you either install Ubuntu server on a computer that you can install that on and use dedicated as a server, or I don't think it is worth the hassle to host this, because all of the instructions, all of the documentation are for a Linux server. Apologies. If we have time later, we can talk about doing a Docker install of something else, like one of those other projects that I talked about. Rustling's project, 26 out of 96 so far, slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race, especially when learning. There's no rush. Okay. So I'm again going to make mkdir oh wait, I should make this a little bit larger for y'all. Okay, great. Should I do it in local machine? If your local machine is running a Linux distro, feel free. But this might not be a stream that you can follow along with if you do not have access to a piece of hardware that is running Linux. But I think you will still learn a lot. I think it's still worthwhile, but you might not be able to follow along. I had high hopes, But looking into the things that we looked at earlier in the stream about virtualization and Docker containers, I don't believe so. I think, let me phrase it this way. If you want to follow along, I think the virtual machine is the best way for you to practice, but there are going to be extra hurdles in order to actually have it be an instance that you can use. I'm just making a CryptPad folder again. Great. For us to be able to use to keep our files. Because you'll notice the first thing is to clone the CryptPad repository. Oh, ha. Which will create a file or a folder called CryptPad. Hey, Eclectic, welcome. Didn't know the session was happening. You are totally fine. As you know, my philosophy about being late is that it's not really a thing because we're just hanging out and vibing. Will my Linux system stay safe if I follow along? As long as you trust yourself to be able to operate a Linux system without breaking it, yes. This is just going to install some things in some folders, and it's going to add a system control, what's it called? Rule? Something like that, so that this automatically starts on boot. If you know how to undo those things if you need to, go ahead. I'm going to drop now. Meetings. Thanks again, Dimmer, and all the others. Until next stream. Thank you for coming, Batu. It's been nice seeing you. Okay, great. So we have now installed the GitHub repo. And now we're just following the instructions. Switch to the latest published tag. And then we get our dependencies. Excuse me. There we go. Whoa. I need to npm install first. And now I can run this npm CI. This really isn't the exciting part of the install. The exciting part is when we get to how we can access this from the public internet. Great, okay. So we've installed all of that. Now, I want to install OnlyOffice because that is how we get the cooler spreadsheet document and presentation, as opposed to just some like basic like markdown stuff. OnlyOffice is open source. It's a LibreOffice alternative that I find has much better UI. This is the wonderful part of installing things, is when you just get to sit back and wait. Great, okay, so now I have everything installed. Now we get into configuration. So it's going to tell us to copy the example configuration, which I'm just going to run their command. Great, so now we have our configuration file, and it just tells us to please read the configuration and modify variables as needed. And this is the thing that I was talking about before, of the really interesting thing, is that you need two domains to take full advantage of CryptPad security features. The main domain, on which users will access your instance, and a sandbox domain or a subdomain, to which a set of restrictive content security policy headers are applied. And what this does is limit the risk of cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, allowing attackers to leak data. It's very interesting. So, in our config.js. We are going to nano config.js. And we're going to take a look at this. And we are going to set the values that we need to set. One of the good news about CryptPad is that it has such good comments on everything. I've done this before, so I'm not going to be reading all of the comments. We're going to set this up insecurely first. So I'm just going to have that access on Great. So we can just access this locally on port 3000, and I'm not going to uncomment the secondary domain, the safe origin. Nor the HTTP address, because we don't need any of these things right now because we are running it unsafely locally to double check our install first. Scrolling through, again, we have lots of config options, and we will set up admin keys once we have it set up. We have options for dealing with storage, because the goal of this is you set this up for a group of users. You do not set this up just for yourself. You set this up for a group of people who you all want to be able to edit files collaboratively. Looking at where documents should be stored in data store and in data archive. Sounds fine to me. Because that // will put it in this folder right here. Here are all of our logging settings. Great. Again, we don't really need to change much of this, especially for our insecure instance, but I'm just going to write that out and close it. And then instance customization. We're not going to do that today. It is just a little bit too complicated for this. That is where you set up like the salt that you want to use when you're salting and hashing your passwords and things like that. That is in instance customization. You have a bunch of different settings that you can set at any time, but the one thing that you must do is set login salt before you run it. But because we are not planning on running this long term, that this is an example stream, I am not going to go through this. If you want to host this for yourself, for a group of like dissident journalists or something like that, you would want to set this up. The idea here is just, again, this makes it harder for attackers who want to brute force common credentials because they must do so again on each CryptPad instance they want to attack, because currently the salt is shared between all of the different CryptPad instances. If you set your own salt, rainbow tables and other hash tables won't work against your instance because you're using a different salt. If none of that makes sense to you, that's totally fine. One of the things that I am going to do, if you are interested in cryptography, Khan Academy has a wonderful, beautiful cryptography course that I took like 5 times when I was younger because it is just so beautiful. And it talks about Diffie-Hellman key exchange, which is what someone was talking about before, RSA encryption, and it just talks about it in this like wonderful way that is so like, yeah, it's so down to earth and fun. And I'm going to drop this link in chat. Okay, so we are not going to be setting our login salt because this is a test toy instance for us. But if you did want to set up something that was very secure, you would set that. Again, it's cool that they offer that option for more security. You'll notice now that now we can start the server. That editing that one thing in the config has set up everything that we need. I'm going to run node server. I am going to run node server. Ooh, okay. Ah. One of the nice things about Linux is that theoretically you never need to reboot. Great. I forgot that I deleted all the files, but I did not actually stop the instance that was running. Great. Now, if we do this again. Come on. You can do it. I believe in you. Oh, no, this is running. I forgot that it doesn't tell you that it's running, but this is where errors or things like that would show up. So in my browser, I can now go to that IP address I specified, 192.168 at port 3000. Uh-oh. Ah. Just gonna check to see if this is the config that we've done or it is my server. It is the config that we've done because I'm able to access some of my other instances that are running on this server, which is always fun. Ah, I know what happened here. I'm going to stop that, and we are going to nano config. And if we scroll all the way down, this is designed for you to access it over localhost right here. HTTP address specifies the address in which the Node.js server should be accessible. I want it to listen on a specific IP address, which is right here, and I needed to configure that because I am not on that local machine, so I cannot access it over localhost. Let's try this again. Okay. Let's take a look at our config file again. Just backed up my entire Linux system. Hey, good for you. Backups are always good. So the good news is that I know that this issue is somewhere in this config file. If I do this, great, okay. Server is still accessible. We'll talk about Nginx in a bit. So it is just port. Okay, we're going to do a dangerous thing here. I'm going to say that I believe I've done everything correctly in terms of that configuration. And this issue is in the way that the issue is in the way that that computer is accessible on the internet or on my local network. No, this makes no sense. Oh, no. Remember how I said that I've done this before, so that's why I felt comfortable doing it on stream? Yes, and yeah, I was not expecting this issue. I'm using Linux on my USB as a live boot. I mean, yeah, if Tails is a secure Linux operating system that is designed entirely for you to just do that, so that everything basically disappears. It is like you running a hardware virtual machine. That's not entirely true, but it is an oversimplification that I'm okay saying on stream. HTTP unsafe origin. The default provided below assumes you are loading CryptPad from a server, which is running on the same machine, using port 3000. If you're testing and developing on your local machine, then it is appropriate to leave this blank. Great, we can leave that blank. You are getting timed out there, Antonio. And I actually don't know how to pronounce your username, and considering that your chances are a bot, you are now timed out for 1 hour. Come back in an hour if you don't want to spam. You're always welcome, as long as you aren't spamming. Okay. A Python-shaped car. I don't know if this is... I'm sharing this because I think this is only a thing that existed in the US. The Oscar Mayer Wienermobile? It just is a thing. I don't know the history of it. I know that it has like a wonderful big history. There's a version of the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile that is, yeah, the Oscar Mayer Wiener was here a few months ago. It goes around. There's an older version of it that is in the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan that I have visited. So I've seen at least a version of the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. It is just a hot dog shaped car. Yeah, I believe the original. Mm-hmm. The 1952 model is on display at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. So yeah, the original, not the original, but the second one. This one is at a museum that I visited, which is very fun. I didn't know about it. What's the point of marketing hot dog or something else? It is marketing hot dogs. Hey, Samada, welcome. Always nice to see you. Anyway, we were talking about a Python-shaped car, and I thought of that because it's more fun to think about that than why I don't know why this isn't loading. And my firewall only protects against outside traffic. I can do anything I want inside the network.
Hot dogs don't need marketing. They are like the most known food item.
Fair. But specific brands of hot dog, saying that your hot dog is better than all the other hot dogs. Which is a thing that I've always wondered. Again, this is a very US thing. Every 4th of July, Nathan's Famous Hot Dogs has a hot dog eating contest. A wrong good one. That was a very good one. They had a really bad rep, so they needed to do a lot of good marketing. Good to know. But yeah, Joey Chestnut eats a lot of hot dogs every year on 4th of July, and it is done by a hot dog company. And I always wonder, is this good advertising for them? That we have the best hot dogs to eat like 70 of, doused in water. Anyway, this is a tangent because again, I don't understand what's happening here.
Joey must have nightmares of it being July 4th every day.
There have been many good jokes that have been made about Joey Chestnut's relationship with July 4th because he has been winning and beating his record every year for like a decade or something like that. Documentary series The Food That Built America if you want to know all about hot dog history. Thank you, Shem. I appreciate that. It's always nice to have a good recommendation of some good documentary media. HTTP address specifies the address on which the Node.js server should be accessible. By default, it will listen on localhost. If you want it to listen to a specified address, specify it here. I love 404's phrase, I would 100% watch it, as if it is not something that exists. We're like talking about some like a Kickstarter campaign or something. Okay, node server. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to check if I start it from system control. Oh, goodness. Yes. So port 3003, I believe, is specifically for WebSocket traffic, but you should be able to access everything through port 3000 that uses those other ports internally. So I've now started in system control, and let's try this again. Oofa doofa. Okay. In hindsight, I should have kept my old config files. I should not have deleted them. But I deleted them at the start of this stream. Oh, give me a sec. No, that shouldn't be the thing. I thought for a second it might be my browser, but no. So I've gone it over 2 domains. HTTP unsafe origin. Ooh. I'm testing this in parallel on the Pentium system. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to uncomment this because it might be defaulting to localhost still. We'll see. The default behavior is to serve the main domain over port 3000, and so no, that should still. Oh goodness. Okay, we're gonna have one more stream on this, 2 hours. HTTP port 3000 is commented under config. Yes, because that is the default port. By default, it will serve content over port 3000. This is if you need a different port, if you have something already running on port 3000. Intel Pentium at 1.6 gigahertz with 4 gigs of RAM. I mean, that sounds like enough to be able to do a bunch of things on a server. Okay, this is going to be the end of the stream. Apologies that we did not have a successful, hey, it's running locally. Now next stream, we get to host it virtually or like through the internet. But we'll get there. We will get there. The next stream is going to be on Wednesday, same time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Coming up right after this, we have an hour from now, today in Global Hack Week number 4. This was so fun, though. I'm glad that y'all enjoyed it. I need to remind myself that the point of these streams is not to create a successful project at the end, but the things that we learn along the way and the vibes that we have. That sounds very cheesy, but also is very true. I wonder if I can run this with WSL. Probably not, but I don't know enough about WSL. I don't believe that that is the case, but I might be mistaken. With that, thank you all so much for coming. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. And we will be back to hopefully finish this up. As I showed you at the beginning.
Hosted apps were the friends we made today.
As I showed you at the beginning, I have gotten this working before. It is just a question of what I am doing this time. With that, until next time, keep it crispy and happy hacking, and I will see you on Wednesday. Bye, y'all. Bye, Eclectic. Bye, 404. Bye, Ritwick. Bye, Cyberpunk Baddie. Bye, Airwax. Bye, y'all.